Hey everybody, and welcome to an obviously little informal What's Brewing with Mobile Cup of Joe. I am your bearded barista, your host, Alvy, and welcome. I have missed you. I've got my fancy cup here from Mobile Cup of Joe. I've missed you guys. I've been gone for a little while and obviously a little rusty because a slightly unprofessional start. But anyway, welcome. What's Brewing? I'm your bearded barista. Let me introduce you to the Brew Crew, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we're talking about tonight. From the left to right, as usual for me, bringing the ones and zeros, Mr. Chuck Haynes. How are you, Chuck? I've missed you. Did you have a good and happy New Year and Christmas?
I did. It was quite uneventful, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Right next to him is back from the dead, Fred. How are you, Fred? How was your holiday season?
My holiday season is good. The new year has, so far, so good, I'll say. And here's my official Mobile Cup of Joe cup.
I love it. I love it. We look professional. I think we get a lot of people fooled because we're not, but we look professional.
Don't give it away, man.
Exactly. Up next is Spec Sheet Tony. I don't know if we'll get to see Crib Sheet tonight, but Spec Sheet Tony's with us. Tony, how are you, sir? How was your festive season?
Wonderful, wonderful. We took our first trip as a family with my son, that is, down to Illinois for him to meet his great grandparents on my parents' side, my dad's side and my mom's side, where we're from, and got a lot of neat stuff. You know, lots and lots of attention for the baby, lots of toys and gifts for the baby. So it was a really, really cool trip.
Awesome, fun. The first ones are always fun. And again, I'm Alvy. I'm your bearded barista. I'm your host for tonight. So let me talk a little bit about what we've got going on, and then I'll give you guys some hashtags and everything here in just a bit. We do have some freshly brewed news tonight, as usual, and we do have our espresso shot. Our theme for tonight is what's in your stocking. So pretty much we're going to talk a little tech toys and gifts and everything that we got over the holiday. Some of this should be what you expect, but there are also a few surprises in there, so stay tuned for that. But before we get into all of that stuff, let me remind you, hashtag MCOJBrew for Mobile Cup of Joe Brew. Hit us up on Twitter, MySpace, Instagram, Google+, GeoCities, wherever you find us. If you can hashtag it. MCOJ Brew, and we'll be monitoring pretty much all of those over the night and over the week. If you have a question for us or just want to share your story, something awesome you got over the holiday season, hit that hashtag up. Also, of course, if you're watching live, you can hit the event page or the YouTube page and just let us know if you got a question, comment for the Brew Crew here or anything going on or just something you like to share over the holidays. And then if you are catching our podcast, you can, of course, just hit the hashtag there too. So if you want to listen or watch us, God bless you that you even want to. Thank you so much. But if you do, we're available for you. And if you want us to talk back, you just hit us up on the event page, YouTube page, hashtag. We're all over the place. So let's go ahead and get started. Introductions are out of the way. Again, I've missed you guys so much. So let's go ahead and get started. Chuck and Fred, what's some freshly brewed news for us tonight?
Well, you know, it's been kind of a little bit of a quiet week, probably, I guess, because of the holidays and things. But there has been some interesting news. You know, I know probably something that's most interesting to the hosts here as well as a lot of our viewers is the Android 5.1 Lollipop. It is still going to be called Lollipop, even though it is 5.1, or at least that's according to the rumors. So the changelog has actually been leaked. It's scheduled to be released sometime in February, I think towards the middle to later half of February. And it's kind of, biggest thing is obviously bug fixes. There has been a number of bugs that have kind of cropped up with Lollipop itself, and Google has been addressing some of them. But there's been also some features that were kind of removed that some people have kind of said, well, where are they? One of the biggest ones that's apparently coming back is silent mode. Silent mode is supposedly actually going to come back with 5.1. For those of you guys who maybe don't have Lollipop yet or haven't had a chance to play with it, they removed silent mode and they added this priority notifications thing where you can do either all notifications, priority notifications, or no notifications. But it's really hard to switch in and out of silent mode. And let's say you're watching a video, the only way to get those notification settings up is actually to hit the the up-down volume buttons, which if you're watching a video or listening to music is actually going to act on the media itself. So it's a little bit frustrating for a number of people, myself included. I definitely missed having the quick, hold down power button, hit silent or vibrate, and there it is. A few other things, general improvements, bug fixes. There's been a lot of issues with low memory killer kind of being very aggressive with Lollipop, and so I think they're kind of toning it down a little bit. Project Volta was great, but there's still a little bit of room for improvement, so I think they're going to kind of have a little bit of improvements with Project Volta here. There's some issues with OK Google, especially on the Nexus 6, just stop working, will occasionally not respond, so they fixed that. And supposedly there's going to be some slight tweaks to the material design color palette itself. I guess there's been some user complaints with some of different color palettes. So it's not a huge update. But it's certainly one that's definitely needed, especially with some of the lingering bugs that have kind of been around with Lollipop. Some of the kind of the big name bugs they've had, the low memory killer, the silent mode, those kind of things. So I'm really kind of glad to see Google pushing out these updates fairly quickly and trying to resolve some of these issues that have kind of plagued users with Lollipop.
Chuck, what about what is being referred to as the memory leak bug? Is that low memory killer, or we're talking about a separate issue now?
So there's two things. There is low memory killer, which is basically what starts killing off apps in the background when Android determines that memory has gotten low. It's kind of been kicked a little bit into overdrive, probably maybe as a result of Project Volta to try and kind of kill some of the apps off. The services can still run, but the apps itself is kind of killed off in the background faster. But there has been actually memory leaks associated with Lollipop itself and certain apps, which has definitely caused low memory killer to start kicking in more often. So yes, a lot of the memory leaks that people are seeing, the excessive memory use with Lollipop, supposedly all those are also going to be fixed here with 5.1.
Well, it sounds like a pretty big update, being that they're going with a 0.1 and not 5.0.3 or something, the usual thing with Android. It's interesting to see most of these manufacturers that haven't even pushed Lollipop. What are we going to get, myself included with my Sony stuff? What are we going to get when we finally get Lollipop? We're going to jump 5.01 and then have to roll again to 5.1 itself. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, why do you think such a big change so quick? I mean, pretty much Motorola is the only people that are pushing Lollipop right now. Why the jump to 5.1 already?
Well, I think that Lollipop was a huge undertaking for Google. They fundamentally rewrote the UI of the operating system for one, but Project Volta, a lot of the background services and the way things work, it was a huge undertaking. And in doing so, just kind of like we saw, if you think back to when Apple released iOS 7, there was a lot of issues with iOS 7. Especially with older devices, which is also what we're seeing here with Lollipop and the Nexus 7. There's been a lot of people reporting, the Nexus 7 is almost unusable on Lollipop in some cases. So you kind of see a lot of parallels when a company, takes a massive undertaking like what Google took with Lollipop, or what Apple took with iOS 7, which you can kind of, iOS 7 for Apple was kind of what Lollipop is for Google. It was a major refresh of their OS. They changed a lot of the underpinnings, the UI. There was a lot of moving parts, and unfortunately, when you do that, bugs are just going to slip through. And so I think there's been a lot of things that looked good on paper and work well maybe on the Nexus 6. But then you look at the Nexus 9, or you look at the Moto X, or you look at some of the older devices, and you kind of start to see some issues. So I think that Google has decided that with 5, let's come out with 5.1. Also, rolling out 5.1 in February, you have to think is probably the version you're going to see in most of next year's flagship devices. Looking at the Galaxy S6, the HTC M9. Whatever LG G4 I assume they'll roll out next year, all those devices are probably going to come with Lollipop 5.1. So Google really wants to resolve as many bugs as possible and really get that solid release out there.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, speaking of Lollipop, looks like OnePlus One is doing some Lollipop releases. Anybody want to chime in on that? Got some more information on this?
I've read it. I've read their announcement. I still don't understand what it is behind it because last we heard officially from any PR was that CM would still be updating the OnePlus ones that are already released with CM. So I can't see any way for OnePlus to release an OTA that is not CM to the devices that are running CM now. It just doesn't work. Like, I mean, you would be like dirty flashing a whole different ROM. It's just not. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. So I guess I understand why they're doing it. I totally understand why they're doing it because they had a 4.4 ROM AOSP, plain AOSP official ROM on the back burner since they've had the device. Actually, I know somebody who was involved in the development of that. So it's not surprising that they are coming out with something that's AOSP and not CM. But I guess I just don't understand why they're making a big deal about it if CM is still going to be updating the Cyanogen OnePlus ones.
Yeah, I don't. I understand why they're doing it too. I mean, obviously the OnePlus One and Cyanogen Mod relationship is extremely strained right now, and so I think that OnePlus is kind of looking for their way forward. I think they're ready to sever ties with Cyanogen Mod as much as Cyanogen Mod is ready to sever ties with them. I think it's kind of been a strained relationship for a while now. What I think is most interesting about this, though, is this actually isn't an OTA. For a beta, so they're actually having people flash it through TWRP. That they're actually suggesting people put a non-stock recovery, so a custom recovery on there, flash this ROM, but then it doesn't have GApps included with it. They're actually pointing people to the same GApps that you would flash if you were to flash the open source version of Cyanogen Mod or AOKP or anything else. So not only is OnePlus doing their own kind of alpha build here, it's not even Google Play certified, which means they can't even include all the Google apps with it.
It sounds dangerous doing that, especially if you're trying to push like an actual manufacturer device. Tony, like what you're talking about, it's not it's a dirty flash OTA at best, yeah. And you're trying to flash separate recoveries and all that. It just sounds like OnePlus One struggles with all this stuff in general, and this doesn't seem like a good direction to go at this point. I would say if you're going to do anything, end of life your OnePlus One, and then move on to OnePlus Two if you're going to do this.
Well, it's not a horrible thing because I mean, if you think back to the days of Gingerbread, so when some companies wanted to update their lower end phones, OTAs are a relatively new thing for Android. I know with the LG Phoenix didn't get an OTA to Gingerbread from Froyo. You had to download the LG tool on your computer and flash the update. So if they wanted to do that and give you a tool that basically doesn't say, like our multi-tools now say, install drivers, and then download ADB, and then flash custom recovery, and you choose all those things. If they wanted to give them a tool that just like Samsung Keys or like LG's tool for older devices, that would just do it all for you and update your phone and just let you know. Because back then, Samsung Keys, it would straight up tell you, we're going to update your phone to the newest version of the operating system, and it will be like a new phone. It will erase everything off of it. If they want to do that, I guess that's okay. But still, you're in a sticky, because they didn't develop TWRP, they didn't TWRP, they didn't develop all that stuff. So I don't know, I don't really know what they're getting at. It's not something that you can really do with a production device that you're. I have a feeling it would bite them if they were a bigger company. But being where they are right now, they're really just not trying at all to pave their way to be a successful large company.
Well, hey, for the four of us on this show and a lot of our viewers, the idea of having to flash a custom ROM and flash custom recovery in order to do it is not intimidating. But out in the mainstream consumer world, it's another story entirely. Particularly when you've got a phone that's being marketed as low to moderate price to attract consumers that may be first-time smartphone users, maybe first-time Android users. You got to give them a tool to facilitate doing this without them having to feel like they've got to be a hacker or a programmer to get it done.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, isn't there an official Lollipop build for OnePlus One already?
No, there is not.
Oh, okay. I thought
There's CyanogenMod, there's CM12, but it's not the. I think it's available in their CM cyanogen.com or cyanogen.org, whatever it is.
right.
But it's not the official OTA OnePlus. Like what one feature I would have loved to see included with the OnePlus, which is not, would be like the Chrome OS switch between stable and dev channels and beta, because if you could have done that with the OnePlus One, like unrooted and just switched, oh hey, I want to be on nightlies now, and switched over to nightlies, that would have been awesome. And a lot of people would want to do that and try out the new CM12. But from what I know, I don't know anyone who's using a real Cyanogen built CM12 on their OnePlus One. Everybody's using custom stuff from other people.
Okay, yeah, I knew that you and Joe both were running a version of Lollipop. I didn't know I thought it was the actual version of it. Gotcha. I understand now. All right, so let's move on. We got some other world-breaking information. I know Fred has some information on the interview. So Fred, first off, catch up everybody that is apparently living under a rock. What's going on with the interview, and then share your thoughts.
What's going on with the interview? I think it was in turmoil when we last discussed it on the show, when we were last here. For as Alvy said, anybody who has either been living under a rock or it's just some time has passed and you haven't been paying attention to it, Sony was in the process of releasing a film called The Interview, which is a comedy focused on North Korea and essentially two bumbling American reporters, TV personality, who was sent to interview the supreme leader of North Korea and is recruited by the government to assassinate him in the process. North Korea got wind of this, perhaps through, perhaps connected with some hacks into Sony. Whether or not they saw the film, we don't know, but they were offended by the concept, issued some threats as to what would happen if the film were released, advised Americans to stay out of movie theaters when the film was released, and so on. Theaters started closing down, the big chains, and Sony responded by not releasing the movie. Well, after a lot of back and forth and a lot of commentators, politicians criticizing Sony for backing down and giving in to threats from North Korea, the movie was released on a very limited basis, but primarily released online. And it was released on Christmas Day. It was sold online. Did apparently 15 million in sales, which is something, but certainly not what they were hoping for in terms of theater sales. About 2 million more in views, which I guess refers to streaming views, if I'm not mistaken. So it's out there. I don't know if anybody else besides me has seen the movie. I did see it. My son grabbed it and watched it with my sons on Christmas night, the night that it came out. I will say that for a movie to cause this much of a stir in the news and in world politics,
Well, I think we might have lost Fred there. I know he'd said that he's been having some internet difficulties this week.
Wasn't sure if it was me or him. Well, while we wait for him to come back on, this brings up some interesting things on really a lot of stuff, movies and everything in general. Let me hit a little political question for you guys. And I know we steer away from politics typically on the show, but to me, looking at this, it would fall under, if anything, propaganda, an American propaganda film, from a foreigner's perspective. North Korea puts out propaganda films against probably a few different countries. Throughout the years, propaganda films have been everywhere. Why the big hate or push on this one if it's just a propaganda film? Thoughts?
Well, I think that we still don't 100% know that North Korea was behind any of this, although that's the speculation. So I think that the North Korea, I think, is very, as you know, very media sensitive. I think that my understanding, and I don't know a lot about world politics, but they basically run. They run the media channels there. They kind of make sure that only what they want to be said is said. So I think it just kind of goes back to their sensitivity to how the world perceives them. I guess maybe they don't actually know how the rest of the world perceives them anyway.
And that's really kind of my point. Like, if they control the media there, then they have to understand we're going to control the media here. If it falls under that, I mean, really, back to what Fred was kind of saying before the show, it's just a campy, silly film. But politically, you would have to view this as a propaganda film, and so why isn't this just viewed like all the other propaganda that's out there? And then, back to what you said, Chuck. Did they actually do it? Have they come forward? I haven't heard that they've actually come forward and claimed.
They denied it.
Yeah, they denied it, which brings in all of our conspiracy theories that we like to get on. But it looks like Fred's back. Fred, we kind of.
Hey, yeah. Hopefully that was not any form of censorship shutting me down. As much as I love a good conspiracy theory, but well, it's a clash of worlds. We live in a culture where it's completely okay and acceptable to make fun of our, everyone from people in entertainment to political figures to heads of state, and it's been a long time since we've gotten accustomed to Saturday night, even in the mainstream, Saturday Night Live and so on, completely mocking and spoofing presidents and high-ranking officials. In North Korea, obviously, that's not the case, and I guess to give some credit to the movie, it does touch on that as kind of a theme. These guys are sent in there and told that they've got to ask only scripted questions, and of course they take another twist on things. So I won't spoil the details of the movie for those of you in the audience that do want to see it. But it was certainly. I would have hoped for something a little heavier, a little more meaningful to go to the wall over.
Yeah, really. But let's talk a little bit about this 15 million in sales on how many views. 15 million. That's a lot, especially today. I mean, it's not blockbuster. It's not 150 million. It's not going to break $1 billion over the next year or anything. But 15 million's a bunch. Anybody have a thought? I know Chuck or probably Tony does on what does the implications of $15 million in what's it been, a week of online versus having to go to a movie theater?
The real question is, how much did it cost to make the movie? Because it's just 15 million, no doubt. From what we've heard about the movie from the vast majority of people online who've shared their opinions, is overwhelmingly bad. And I don't believe that it would have done as well as it did had there not been so much controversy surrounding it, because it's just a stoner movie. It's just a smoke some pot and watch this movie. That's what the movie is. I didn't watch it, but I've seen other things with James Franco and Seth Rogen, and that's what they all are. Some of them are good for a couple laughs, but in general, they're just really, like I said, it just depends on how much they made. If they made, a lot more than what they put into it, which 15 million, you don't know nowadays. Like they could have put a lot more than that into the movie. It depends on how,
44 million.
The numbers we're seeing here are production budget of 45 million, domestic marketing budget of 35 million, and an overseas marketing budget of of 10 to 12 million, of which only about 5 to 6 million of marketing was probably canceled and potentially recouped. They were expecting it to open with domestic gross of 80. I'm sorry. I guess this was overall. They were expecting 80 million gross domestically and 130 million worldwide. So, we don't know how long the wave will continue, but 15 million is a pretty big hit from their expectations.
Well, but I'm looking at box office numbers now, and if it had gone to theater, assuming 15 million, it would have been the number 5 movie in the States. I mean, The Hobbit, it grossed 40 million this past weekend. So yeah, I mean that's still going to win, but fifth in domestic box office isn't terrible. Yes, it doesn't make up for 44 million, and it's probably going to lose money and blah blah blah. But number 5 ain't too bad.
No, and we're talking about 15 million over what, a week?
Right.
Is that what, give or take? So.
I don't know, if I were Sony and I were putting money into making a movie, especially an extremely controversial movie, I would want it to. Which, I mean, no, you can't look at the plot of the movie and not know it's going to be controversial. So we can't act like Sony's are just a bunch of morons. Also, Sony is an Asian company. I mean, they might be located here like now because of everything, but Sony is originally an Asian-owned company. So, I don't know. I have trouble. I don't think Sony's going to be making a mistake like this again. I don't think they're going to be making even close to this. And down the line, depending on how this reflects on the people, I don't know what role they play in the production of the movie or the inception of the idea stages of the movie, but just seeing the kinds of movies that come from the Seth Rogen, James Franco team, I think they may end up needing to make their own company if they want to keep doing crap like this. Like, I saw some of their stuff, and some of it's funny, but I would not watch this movie. I would not pay to watch this movie, that's for sure. But it's very hard to say where this is going to go. And like Chuck said, this is something that is going to go down in history. So it's going to continue making money forever, probably, just because everybody will always remember, and we'll tell our kids when. Us geeks will tell our kids when, next time somebody gets hacked. Yeah, I remember when they did that over some stupid movie, blah, blah, blah. So it's really hard to tell from the first week of sales, especially being that it was on a holiday. So if it had come out on any other date week, it probably would have made way more.
All right, so let's move on. We're 9:30 here. We're halfway through our show, and we've been on some freshly brewed news for a while. I don't want it to get stale. We missed a few things. We'll catch up on those next week. But Tony, are you ready with your espresso shot review?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, good. Every week we do an espresso shot review while you're getting that ready, Tony. And it's our little mini review, and it differs. Usually Joe does it, but Joe's not with us. We miss you, Joe. He is out of town. But Tony's going to take the reins for that. So here's our espresso shot review, and I'll let you say the name because I can't say that name yet. Go ahead, Tony.
All right, I might ask for for Fred to come in and help me with this if he has taken a chance to look at it, because this is actually a device that Fred and Joe and myself have all had a chance to play with a little bit over the past couple weeks. And what it is it's a company called Malaise, and I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that right. It's M-L-A-I-S, so Malaise. It's the M9. Now, if you search the company's name on Google and just search for other Malaise devices, what you'll see or what you'll notice are a lot of devices that look like U.S. flagship clones. So you'll see devices that say have photoshopped Galaxy S3 screens, Galaxy S4 screenshots onto their device, and the device looks remarkably like the Samsung flagship devices. But the Malaise M9 is a genuine try at a low-end device that does not mimic any devices that we've seen so far. So what it is it's a pretty thin phone at I think about 7.5 millimeters thick. It has a 5-inch QHD display. That's lowercase QHD, which is 960 by 540. It runs the Android 4.4 KitKat. It's got a MediaTek 1.3 gigahertz, I think, octa-core processor, a gigabyte of RAM, 8 gigs of storage plus a micro SD slot, and 2 megapixel and 8 megapixel front and rear cameras, respectively. Now the camera is the first thing I have to note. Even though it says 8 megapixel, it is a horrible quality. Now I expect a lot from an 8 megapixel camera because I've seen what other budget devices from companies like Blue can do with an 8 megapixel camera, and it's actually really impressive for a budget device. But overall, for what the device is running on only 1 gig of RAM, it's got pretty impressive battery life, which I will ask Fred to chime in about in a second. And it works relatively well because it runs a almost perfectly stock version of Android 4.4 KitKat. The only tweaks that they've really made are the addition of a couple of screen gestures to turn the screen on. And I mean, and not just a couple. I mean, almost every letter of the alphabet. You can tap, okay, draw a V on the screen and do this. Draw a E on the screen and do this. So you can specify all these different gestures, and each one could open a different app, and it'll just turn the screen on and open it up. So that is really, really cool because that's a useful feature that everyone will use, and it's not something that's stupid like, hey, in the Samsung labs, let's change the color scheme and see if anybody notices. So it's actually a real enhancement to Android and not just a needless change. Fred did notice something interesting about the battery life, though, and this is off the cell network, but it was very interesting to hear from his first to second or first to third days using the device. Do you remember what you said, Fred?
I believe I noted that it really battery had diminished very, very little, like 24 or 48 hours into having the phone powered up, and somebody commented that at QHD, and I initially made the mistake of not discerning between lowercase QHD and uppercase QHD, that it was not firing that many pixels to really drain the battery too much. Now, I did put the phone online. I've had it from time to time. I don't have an extra line, but I have swapped out my SIM card, and battery life does dwindle fairly quickly when it's online, at least when it's in relatively low service areas, which was a little bit of a disappointment.
Interesting. Now, if for anybody who doesn't know, that lowercase QHD is quarter high definition. So you've got uppercase QHD, which is quad high def, which is 2.5K, and you've got lowercase QHD, which is 1/4 of the amount of pixels you would have on a full HD 1920 by 1080 display. So it is very, very low resolution, but even with that low resolution, the screen doesn't look bad. It's not like it's not like one of those really cheap early days of Android devices where you can actually pick out different pixels and it just very, very low quality looking. It doesn't have that feel to it. But in general,
yeah, I will say that not everything is great on screen, but some things are. And for instance, the wallpapers they provide look really sharp.
Yeah, they did a good job with that. But in general, I think this device is going to be.
I don't know if we'll get a good view here, but I don't think that's going to work. We'll have to send a screen capture.
Yeah. But in general, I think we decided this device was going to MSRP at about $115, and for a device that's only going to be $115, they've got the right idea putting stock Android on it and not muddying it up with anything else. Because stock Android is going to run pretty well on even the lowest end devices. The problem we have is companies like Samsung and HTC who are heavily skinning and putting a lot of bloated apps into the device, and then expecting all those apps that you've come to expect on a Galaxy device or a HTC Desire device to run and pack them into the lower end hardware, and that's just a mistake. So sticking with that almost fully stock Android ROM for a low end device is definitely the way to go, and it'll be a way to get noticed in the Android community. for a no-name company that until we were contacted by the PR person, I had never heard of before.
Yeah, is that no name here in the States, or is that kind of a worldwide no name at this point? Are they?
I don't think that they're. I really think that they're bread and butter. Now, I feel bad for saying this even because we've talked to the PR rep and he's a nice guy, if a little confused about English language, but I really do think that their bread and butter up until now has been clone devices, because that's what you see. I mean, when you just search MLAIS and you'll see their phones, they look exactly like, one will be the Galaxy S3, Galaxy S3, or something like that. So
right.
That's what I think they've been making their bread and butter. And so, yes, they would be a no-name. So, like somebody like Huawei, we didn't know the name Huawei for a couple of years, and they already had flooded our market with low-end phones because they just licensed out their hardware to AT&T. And T-Mobile to make devices but not put their name on them. So I think that they may be the next ZTE, their next Huawei in the U.S. if they can break their way in. But as long as they keep stock Android and don't get full of themselves and want to start skinning and making their own thing, they will at least be a viable option for people who want a mid-range to low-end device.
Cool. Excellent.
Tony, before we get off this one, I just wanted to ask you whether you got yours on the network at all, and if so, what kind of speeds you were getting.
I haven't, because I actually don't have a SIM card that fits. I think I have a nano SIM and I have a full-size SIM card, or mini SIM. But I think, doesn't it take a micro SIM?
It takes a micro, yeah, which it happens to be what I've got currently. I did put it online on T-Mobile, and it appears that I'm getting I'm getting terrible speeds. Probably not even 3G, more like 2G speeds, a fraction of a meg per second. In areas where I'm seeing 30 and 40 megabits per second on T-Mobile usually. So it may be that GSM is less evolved on this. It's got dual connectivity. Also, it's got MCDMA, which I don't have a way to access, and maybe that's where the power lies, or maybe it's just a low-speed radio. I haven't gotten that far into.
And it could be the country that it was originally made for. Any of these dual SIM phones that come over here, like blue phones, a lot of blue phones are dual SIM. All of those were manufactured for other countries, like India, where they actually do have the dual SIM style networks. And it could be that where the device was made for just doesn't have speeds anywhere near what we can get almost everywhere in the U.S.
And it could just be missing one of the radio bands. That's like, I know T-Mobile, they hit like 2 or 3 to make it run that speed, so which you may not have that information in front of you. So that, not sure if that's a service or a phone or a little bit of both on that.
True.
So let's get on to something a little, maybe a little more fun. But thanks, Tony, for the espresso shot and filling in for Joby on that.
No problem.
So let's talk about what's in your stocking. What did we get for Christmas, guys? Chuck, go ahead. Let me know. Tell me something good, man. What'd you get for Christmas?
Well, it's going to be kind of funny because I actually got absolutely nothing tech-related for Christmas. So, despite the fact that despite the fact that I'm on the on a tech show, I actually got nothing at all. So
but you got a few toys. You got a few toys leading up to.
Well, that's true. I did get my wife a Bluetooth, one of the Bluetooth portable speakers. She wanted one of those, and we did just get her a Note 4. It wasn't a Christmas gift, but kind of an after Christmas thing. So I didn't get any tech toys. My wife got a couple of them.
Well, tell everybody what you got on the way.
Okay, I do have a Nexus 6 on the way though, so I guess I can't complain too much.
Right.
If Motorola would hurry up and ship it, hurry up, Motorola, then it could get here and I could actually use it. But since we are a mobile cup of Joe, I can actually talk about something that I got that I guess is technically low tech. And forgive me, I'm actually trying to figure out how to share my screen, but I don't have any idea how to do it. So it is the
green screen share.
I don't want to take up too much time here trying to figure it out. So those of you watching the podcast, sorry for me stumbling my way through this. You're listening. So anyway, I got the Hario ceramic coffee mill hand grinder. They call it a Skirtin. So it is a very high quality ceramic burr coffee grinder that you do by hand. It's for any of you guys who may or may not be coffee snobs out there, if you ever do get a grinder, it absolutely has to be ceramic burrs. Don't waste your money on plastic burrs. Don't waste your money on the things that chop the beans up. They're all an absolute waste of money. Don't even waste it. Spend some money, get a very high quality grinder. You will notice a immense difference in the quality of the coffee. So this is a ceramic burr. There we go. That's it right there. That is it. You pour the beans in the top there. What you can actually do is to set the grind strength. There's a little pin up top. You actually take the handle off and then actually adjust the grind strength up and down with the ceramic burrs there. And of course, you can do a coarse or a fine grind depending upon what you're actually going to do. It's actually fairly inexpensive. I think Amazon had it for about $35, which for good quality coffee grinders is cheap. So for any of you guys out there who may enjoy a good cup of coffee and don't mind a little bit of work, I highly recommend it. You definitely will notice a difference in your cup of coffee using that. Assuming you're not using like a cheap coffee maker, then you might not notice a difference at all. So.
And use good water, please. Can I just say?
Yes, yes. It must be water free of any impurities. So, if you don't have an system, which for those of you guys who don't know what that is, it's a reverse osmosis system, which basically is like having spring water here at the house. So if you don't have access to that, go out and buy spring water or buy a good water. Don't use water from the tap. You'll just ruin the flavor of the coffee.
Thank you. Well, I mean, nobody ever mentions that part of it. But coffee's like 99% water, so it's like the beans matter, of course, a lot, and so does the water.
And I tell you another thing that does matter. If you are using a traditional drip coffee maker, spend $100, and I'll tweet it out. There's a coffee maker that you can get. The ones that have bottom burners are actually the worst coffee makers you can get. So you actually want to look for one that has a metal carafe, and the water comes out, I believe it's at 170 degrees, but I'll have to double check on that. Because the ones that have bottom burners, what actually happens is the water doesn't come out at the right temperature, so you don't actually fully extract all the flavor from the beans, and it actually heats the bottom burner, heats the water up after you've actually gone through the beans. So that's why a lot of those, if you go into a truck stop or somewhere like that, they've got the old school pot sitting there, it always tastes burnt. Well, that's because it is burnt. It is, because it's not brewed properly. So if you do have a drip machine, I'll tweet out a link later for an inexpensive one. I think it's around $100. Or if you want to get the granddaddy of them all, the Technivorm, it's about $250, but it's worth every penny.
Well, and that's not crazy because certain people on this show buy Keurig, and you can get a Keurig for many hundreds of dollars, and that is not the best cup of coffee.
It is not,
it's
but
the most consistent.
True.
It might not be the best, but it's the most consistent. It's the Walmart or the not the Walmart. I'm sorry, the McDonald's. I'm sorry. I found it. I like it better than most, and it is, it's stronger. It's just stronger than anything else I've been able to find, which is nice. And I don't invest any time into it. I would not be grinding my own coffee.
You don't know what you're missing. All right, moving right along. Thank you, Chuck, for sharing your low tech. Fred, what did you get for Christmas, bud?
Hey, I got a few things. Actually, I guess got an embarrassment of riches and wasn't even thinking of everything when I mentioned it. I got a couple of toys that I haven't even gotten into yet from my colleagues at work. One is this little baby here. It is a G-Zip wired travel speaker, not wireless. And I have not played with it yet, but I will be doing so and let everybody know how it goes. And I also got also from the office, got a nice pair of iHome over-the-ear noise-canceling headphones.
Ooh, nice.
Have not tried them yet, not familiar yet. It does have a microphone, so it may get a little bit of a workout and a test on the next show. Back here at home, my awesome kids got me a couple of gifts that do have some technology content to them. This is this scarf, which my awesome son Forrest got for me, is made of a material which is called Heat Tech by Uniqlo. That's Uniqlo, and it's acrylic and wool. But without giving us any specifics, the company claims that it is super modern Japanese technology, uses your body's moisture to generate heat, and traps the heat in little pockets in the fibers. And I will say that I wore it out yesterday. It's comfortable, soft, warm. It was high 20s, so I can't say that I've tested it down to below 0 temperatures, but nice scarf, and as my son pointed out, it even has tech in the name, Dad. So it is a tech gift. And then I got these from my awesome daughter Phoebe. They look like an ordinary pair of leather gloves, stylish, comfortable, some thinsulate lining. But the real key here is that the thumb and first 2 fingers on each hand are made of some sort of conductive material, so you can use it on a touch screen. It does work. I tested it. You can use it if you're standing out there in a snowstorm or whatever the case may be. You can use your touchscreen phone. It still is like trying to use a touchscreen phone wearing gloves, and I don't suppose that there's any workaround to that, so I don't suppose you want to do fine, detailed art creation and you know, writing lengthy letters while you're standing outside with these. But in a pinch, you can certainly answer a call, make a call, and do what you need to when you're out in the cold. So that's my holiday takings here.
Nice. Yeah, you made out like a bandit on that. All right, so we're going apparently in order here. So Chuck was low tech. Fred's pretty mid tech and high tech. Tony, it looks like you've got a bunch of high tech toys to brag about. Tell me about your Christmas, bud.
Let's see. So everything, all of this stuff was pretty much leading up till Christmas, but they were Christmas gifts of sorts. So I've got, let's see, I got the Galaxy Camera 2 for my wife and I, since we just had our son. Now it's time to have a nice camera, which if you don't know what a Galaxy Camera is, it is basically, it looks, when you turn the screen on, it looks like a Galaxy S4 or a Galaxy S5, runs Android 4.3, but the back of it is a DSLR, and it just has Wi-Fi connectivity, no SIM, no cell. But it has the Play Store. You can download Facebook, Google Plus, share your photos directly, even have your photos auto backed up to your Google account in full, 4 to 5 megabyte DSLR style. So they're high resolution, very good, high quality photos, real flash on an Android device, instead of those washed out white flashes we have that bounce off your finger every time you take one. Anyway, that is probably the most exciting one because now we have something good to capture those moments with our son.
Right.
I also got we purchased a Galaxy Tab Pro 8.4 for my mom for Christmas, her first tablet, and she liked it so much it was on sale at Best Buy. She bought me one. Now this is last year's tech, but I wiped it. I put a CyanogenMod on it, and the thing works like a charm. Snapdragon 800, 2 gigs of RAM, 8.4-inch Quad HD display, which I was very surprised that came out in January and snuck under the noses of everyone in the tech community, and nobody started freaking out about Quad HD displays until they started hitting phones. But yes, Quad HD display for a device that was released last January. And 16 gigs of storage with up to a 64 gig SD card. But overall, I've been really happy with it. The 8.4-inch screen size is really good, especially now that I've got my next device, which is a Nexus 6. A 6-inch display wouldn't couple well with a 7-inch tablet because they're just too close in size. So I've been very happy with the Tab Pro 8.4. And that brings me to my other device, which is the Galaxy, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Google, for doing that.
Ooh.
I don't know if we're gonna let you come back on
Wow.
now.
The first two were Galaxy.
Reminiscing about the Galaxy Nexus, I'm sure.
Yes. That's what it is. So I got a Nexus 6. This was from my work. Technically bought this for me. This is an amazing device, and it doesn't feel nearly as large as it did the first week. So it feels great, and I'm very excited for Chuck, who's getting one also. Highly recommend the Nexus 6 to anyone who wants one, or anyone who's been thinking about upgrading. And if you're having to choose right now between a Nexus 5 and a Nexus 6, like you want to hit Nexus but not sure which one to go for the Nexus 6. You will not regret it. It is an awesome phone.
Assuming you can afford the price difference.
Yeah, assuming you can afford the price difference. It is substantial.
Well,
it is substantial.
Yes, but also you have to understand if you're buying the Nexus 5, you're buying an already year-old phone,
Right.
Which means you might get another year out of it. Whereas if you're spending more money on the Nexus 6, you will get 2 years out of the Nexus 6.
Yeah.
Well,
Very
that
true.
and the Nexus 6 is, I mean, they're entirely different phones for different audiences. I mean, the Nexus 6 is a true to form high-end device, whereas the Nexus 5 and all previous Nexus devices have had some kind of corners cut that make them, not mid-range. They're above mid-range, but upper mid-range. You're sacrificing photo quality, you're sacrificing this and that, and the Nexus 6 doesn't make any sacrifices. The one or two things you might feel like you're making a sacrifice on, pretty much only if you're coming from a device that was already extraordinary in one way. The only difference I notice is less battery on this from my OnePlus One, but the OnePlus One was a pretty singular device as far as battery is concerned.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of any other device getting anywhere near the battery that the OnePlus One got. So it's still on par, if not above average, for battery life and everything else. Camera's fantastic. Front and back cameras are both fantastic. Front-facing speakers, which up until I got one, didn't realize that were a necessity, and now I can tell you I probably will never voluntarily own a device without one.
Yes.
Amazing. So highly recommend the Nexus 6. And then it is not as high-tech as all these gadgets, but I got a bunch of Amazon gift cards, and last night I spent those on a BC Rich Mockingbird, which is an electric guitar, so it's at least electronic. A BC Rich Mockingbird. I'm very excited. I'm actually probably more excited to get this than I was to get the Nexus 6.
And at least it's a guitar, which
exactly.
is
Yes. So very excited about that. That was what was underneath my tree and in my stocking this year.
Very nice, very nice. Everybody made out well.
winning so far.
Yeah, really, and almost another little mini espresso shot there for the Nexus 6 too. So I can tell you like it because you kind of raved and went on about it.
Oh yeah.
That's easy to tell. And as far as me, I'm kind of like with Chuck. I didn't get anything under the tree, but leading up to, I got my Zen watch, and I got my 8-inch Sony Xperia Z3 tablet compact, and I absolutely love them. And then I got this cool shirt. I've been trying to rock it all night. My Retro Mario 8-bit shirt.
Nice.
And then a whole bunch of other stuff. I did get, best Christmas ever, 4 cases of Surge. So if you don't know what Surge is, I'll send you the link so you can buy some. Buy me a case, buy you a case. It'll just work out in the wash the best way. The best soda ever created by mortal man, handed down by God himself, is the essence of heaven. Trust me, if you've never tried it, go get some Surge. But I got 4 cases of Surge. It's back. So I got super excited about that. There's my espresso shot on Surge. I love it. But we're about running out of time, so let me give you guys a few minutes to plug what you got going on. First of the year, Chuck, what's going on for you this week and probably this month? I know you got holiday wrap-up going on, too. What's going on?
Yeah, not a whole lot. Anxious to get my Nexus 6. Its estimated delivery is Friday, so I'm hoping it doesn't actually take that long. But I guess we'll see. It hasn't shipped yet, so I'm a little bit concerned, especially since it's coming from China. But other than that, starting back up work with the new year, and we finally rolled Chess V3 out to all premium members, kind of silently. We just turned it on and let them find it themselves. And I think they've started finding it because we've started to have some very good feedback, especially on some of the things that I was working on. So kind of nice to see. But people are slowly finding it. I suspect that as more people find it this week, coming back from holidays, we'll hear a lot more about it.
Awesome, very cool. What about you, Fred? What's going on with Tech Dissected this week? What you got brewing?
Well, Tech Dissected has been on holiday for a while, but we'll be back in full swing. I believe starting beginning of next week, and I've got a backlog of stuff to write about. Obviously, this Malaise phone is here. I've got some other things to review. I've got a Galaxy Note 4 and a Note Edge as well to put through the tests. Nice. and cover. And well, that's about where we're at now. I've got a bunch of more toys to play with and hopefully get some articles out of as well.
Fun. Yeah, you get the easy job as far as like trying to figure out how to pronounce this stuff. You just get to type it. Tony and me, we got to actually pronounce these things when we say them. So you can cheat a little bit and call it whatever. You can call it mayonnaise if you want to, as long as you type it right.
There you go. I was actually beginning to be suspect. I don't have the box handy here, but the logo has the letter M in a different color than the rest of the letters. So I was actually wondering if they wanted to be M-Lays or
Gotcha.
M-Lays.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I don't know because it sounds French, but they're not a French company. You know, I would think Malay or whatever. So could be Malay. Mayonnaise. I'm going mayonnaise until I get proved differently. So,
as long as it's not Melaise, that's...
yeah, really. Tony, what's going on with you? Mobile Cup of Joe, swapping, all that other stuff, Bo. What's going on? What's brewing?
Oh, man, not a lot. We're recovering from the holiday over at Swappa, and still just, adjusting and enjoying parent life, so not a lot going on right now. I just published my full review, and when I say full review, it's a very short full review, but for a device that runs pretty much stock Android, that's to be expected, of the device I did an espresso shot on last week, the Blue Studio 7.0. So check out the Mobile Cup of Joe channel for that, and I will have full reviews of the Studio 5.0 LTE, Studio Mini LTE. Let's see, there's one more. 5.0 LTE, Mini LTE.
6-inch.
Oh, no, that's Joe's going to be doing, since Joe has that now, he'll be doing the full review of the Studio 6.0 HD LTE. But still, very exciting. 3 new devices from Blue which run on LTE. LTE bands for AT&T and T-Mobile up to 150 megabits per second down. So very nice to see some mid-range to low-end devices getting LTE capability. So now you've got a couple more options when you're buying off contract unlocked devices. Very exciting to see that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and if you haven't checked out Tony's unboxing and reviews and all that stuff for Blue, there's a lot of Blue stuff on the channel right now. All very, very good videos, all very, very good information. So be sure to check that out. As far as me, what's going on, I do have my Zen Watch review that I hopefully will get up in the next 7 to 10 days. And also I've got this, I meant to bring it, I don't have it with me. It's it's not a Bluetooth speaker, but it's a portable speaker that uses your phone's speakers through magnetic induction to amplify. So there's like no setup. You set the phone or the tablet or whatever down, and it amplifies. Very interesting to see how that works out. So that should be hopefully up in the next 10 to 15 days and all that stuff too. So that's what I've got going on for Mobile Cup of Joe and me over here. But as far as the show and everything, that just about wraps it up. We are here at our hour mark, so just thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any other questions or comments throughout the week, if you're catching us on the podcast or catching us later on YouTube, just hit the hashtag MCOJBrew or leave a comment on the event page or the YouTube page. You can get in touch with us. We're all over the socials, so check us out. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks Chuck, Fred, and Tony for chiming in and sharing so much stuff. And be sure to check us out next week at 9 p.m. Eastern, where Joe will be back with us. He's out of town and on vacation. We missed you, Joe, so we can't wait to see you next week. And thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys all next week. Good night.